The morning sun glinted off Sophia Carter's pearl-white Mercedes convertible as it roared down Hamilton Avenue at twice the legal speed limit. Her manicured fingers tapped impatiently on the leather steering wheel, while her latest social media post garnered hundreds of likes. The clock on her dashboard read 8:15 a.m. Not that time meant much to someone who'd never faced real consequences. Franklin Elementary School was just beginning its morning routine. Children's laughter filled the air as parents helped little ones out of cars, teachers greeted students with warm smiles, and crossing guards held up their stop signs with practiced authority. None of them noticed the Mercedes approaching until its engine's roar shattered the peaceful scene. Officer James Johnson had served on the force for 15 years, and something about this morning felt different. He positioned his patrol car near the school after reports of repeated speeders in the area. When the white convertible blazed past his radar, the numbers made him do a double take. 55 miles per hour in a 20 miles per hour school zone. Sophia's phone buzzed with another notification as she swerved around a minivan. Her designer sunglasses, worth more than most people's monthly rent, concealed bloodshot eyes from the previous night's charity gala, though her idea of charity involved more champagne than philanthropy. The coffee in her cup holder splashed dangerously close to her imported Italian leather seats as she took a corner without slowing. The police siren's wail barely registered through her car's premium sound system. When it finally did, Sophia's perfectly glossed lips curved into a practiced smile. She'd talked her way out of tickets before. Her father's name usually did the trick, and when it didn't, his lawyers handled the paperwork. She pulled over with the casual confidence of someone who believed rules were mere suggestions for people of her status. Officer Johnson approached the vehicle, already noting multiple violations. The driver's smile remained unwavering as she reached for her pink designer wallet, extracting a license that had somehow remained pristine despite her history of incidents. The smell of expensive perfume mixed with last night's champagne wafted from the car. "Do you know why I pulled you over, miss?" Officer Johnson asked, his tone professional but firm. Sophia's response would set in motion a chain of events that would change not just her life, but the lives of everyone she was about to encounter. 2 weeks later, the marble halls of Jefferson County Courthouse echoed with Sophia Carter's confident footsteps. Her father's usual team of lawyers was notably absent, a detail that barely registered in her mind as she checked her reflection in her phone's camera. The golden morning light streaming through tall windows caught the diamonds on her wrist, casting tiny rainbows on the austere walls. The courthouse regulars paused their routines to watch her pass. Her Louboutin heels clicked against the floor as if announcing royalty, while her perfectly tailored channel suit seemed almost rebellious in the traditionally somber environment. A young clerk nearly dropped his stack of files, distracted by her dramatic entrance. Courtroom 305 fell silent as Sophia pushed through the heavy wooden doors, 15 minutes late. Judge William Morris was already seated, his distinguished presence commanding respect from everyone, except Sophia, who was busy adjusting her designer watch. The judge's dark eyes followed her movement as she sauntered to the defendant's table, leaving a trail of expensive perfume in her wake. "Miss Carter," Judge Morris's deep voice cut through her bubble of indifference. "I see punctuality isn't among your priorities this morning." Sophia glanced up, offering the same practiced smile that had charmed her way through life. "Sorry, traffic was terrible." She punctuated her excuse with a small shrug, as if the court should understand that her time operated on a different schedule than everyone else's. Judge Morris leaned forward slightly, his Harvard Law degree visible on the wall behind him. "Miss Carter, please put away your phone." His tone was measured but firm, carrying decades of authority. Instead of complying, Sophia held up one manicured finger, the universal just a moment sign, as she finished typing a text message. Several gasps echoed through the courtroom. The court reporter's fingers hovered over her keyboard, uncertain whether to document this display of defiance. The judge's gaze remained steady, observing every micro-expression that crossed Sophia's face. His reputation for innovative sentencing was well known throughout the state, though Sophia remained blissfully unaware as she finally placed her phone face down on the table, rolling her eyes as if she'd just been asked to perform an immense favor. Little did she know her next words would completely reshape her carefully curated world. "Let's review your driving record, Miss Carter," Judge Morris began, opening a thick folder on his bench. The morning sunlight illuminated his face, highlighting the dignified gray at his temples and the wisdom in his eyes earned from 2 decades on the bench. Sophia examined her fresh manicure, barely suppressing a yawn. Her attention only snapped forward when the judge began listing her offenses. 3 speeding incidents in school zones, 5 parking violations, and now reckless driving with a blood alcohol level above the legal limit. "Those were all handled," Sophia interrupted, waving her hand dismissively. The courtroom temperature seemed to drop several degrees at her casual tone. "Daddy's lawyers took care of everything. I don't know why we're even here discussing ancient history." Judge Morris set down the folder, folding his hands carefully. "Miss Carter, this court values justice over influence. Your father's connections won't determine the outcome today." Sophia's perfectly arched eyebrows shot up. She straightened in her chair, finally giving the judge her full attention, though not the kind he deserved. "Really?" Her voice dripped with condescension. "I don't think you understand how things work in certain circles, Your Honor." She emphasized his title with a slight smirk. The gallery stirred uncomfortably. Even the most seasoned bailiff shifted his weight, sensing the brewing storm. The court reporter's fingers trembled slightly over her keyboard. "Perhaps," Sophia continued, standing up despite her attorney's desperate tugging at her sleeve, "we should wait for someone more suitable to handle this case. Someone who understands the delicate nature of these situations." Her eyes flickered meaningfully around the courtroom, then back to the judge. Judge Morris remained perfectly still, his expression unchanged. Only those who knew him well would notice the slight tightening around his eyes, not from anger, but from disappointment and determination. "Miss Carter," he spoke softly, causing everyone to lean forward to hear, "in my 20 years serving justice, I've learned that true wisdom comes from understanding that every person who enters this courtroom deserves equal respect and consideration. Your words tell me more about your character than any file ever could." Sophia's confident smile faltered for the first time as Judge Morris reached for his gavel. She was about to learn that some lessons come at a price no trust fund could cover. A ray of sunlight pierced through the high courthouse windows, illuminating the dust motes dancing in the air as Judge Morris adjusted his reading glasses. The subtle action drew every eye in the courtroom, the silence so complete that Sophia's nervous swallow was audibly clear. "Miss Carter," Judge Morris began, his voice carrying the weight of careful consideration, "I've reviewed not only your driving record, but also the numerous letters from your father's legal team." He paused, lifting a stack of expensive letterhead papers. "Impressive law firms, all requesting leniency based on your family's standing in the community." Sophia's shoulders relaxed slightly, her lips curving into the beginning of a triumphant smile. The judge, however, wasn't finished. "But what catches my attention more," he continued, setting aside the letters and picking up a different document, "is this report from Franklin Elementary's principal, the school where you were speeding." He looked directly at Sophia. "Did you know that exact spot where Officer Johnson stopped you was where, last year, a child was seriously injured by a distracted driver?" The color drained from Sophia's face as murmurs rippled through the courtroom. Her manicured fingers gripped the edge of the defense table. "Therefore," Judge Morris straightened, his voice taking on a tone that made even the veteran bailiff stand straighter, "I'm sentencing you to something more valuable than a fine your father can easily pay or community service you can hire someone to complete." He pulled out a fresh document, the official seal gleaming. "You will spend the next 3 months at Excellence Academy, working full-time as a teacher's assistant. You'll arrive at 7:30 a.m. each morning to help with breakfast duty. You'll assist in classes, grade papers, and learn what responsibility truly means." Sophia's mouth dropped open in genuine shock. But I have my social obligations, my charity events." Additionally, Judge Morris continued as if she hadn't spoken. You'll attend evening classes on civic responsibility and complete a comprehensive safe driving course. Miss Thompson, the Academy's director, has already agreed to supervise your progress personally. The judge leaned forward slightly, his eyes kind but unwavering. This isn't punishment, Miss Carter. This is an opportunity to understand the true meaning of privilege, not the kind that comes from wealth, but the kind that comes from serving others. Sophia stood frozen at the entrance of Excellence Academy, her goosey handbag clutched tightly against her designer blazer. The building wasn't what she'd expected. Instead of the rundown facility she imagined, she faced a modest but well-maintained structure with colorful murals decorating its walls. Children's laughter echoed from the playground, mixing with the morning bird songs. Right on time, a crisp voice called from behind her. Sophia turned to find Miss Thompson, the Academy's director, approaching with purposeful steps. Unlike the intimidated administrators Sophia was used to dealing with, Miss Thompson carried herself with quiet confidence, her natural hair crowned with elegant gray streaks, and her simple business attire somehow making Sophia's expensive outfit feel overdone. Your desk is ready, Miss Thompson continued, leading the way through bright hallways decorated with student artwork. We start each day with morning circle in the cafeteria. The children enjoy sharing their goals for the day. Sophia's phone buzzed, her friend Allegra sending details about their usual lunch spot. I usually take lunch at Le Bistro, Sophia mentioned, expecting the same deference she received everywhere else. Ms. Thompson's smile remained pleasant but firm. Here, we eat with the students. It's an important time for building connections. Speaking of connections, she gestured to a sign reading phone-free zone. You'll need to keep that in your desk during school hours. The reality of her situation began to sink in as Sophia watched her phone disappear into her desk drawer. Miss Thompson handed her a schedule packed with activities: morning reading circles, math tutorials, playground duty, and afternoon art sessions. But I've never taught anything, Sophia protested weakly, her usual confidence wavering. Perfect time to learn, Miss Thompson replied. Today, you'll assist Mrs. Chen's third-grade class. They're starting multiplication tables. She paused, fixing Sophia with a knowing look. You did pass third-grade math, didn't you? Before Sophia could form a suitably cutting response, the morning bell rang. The hallway flooded with children, their energy and chaos sweeping past like a tidal wave. A small girl with bright beads in her hair stumbled, dropping her books. Without thinking, Sophia reached down to help, her perfectly manicured hands gathering scattered papers. Thank you, the girl beamed, revealing a missing front tooth. Something about her genuine smile made Sophia's practice one falter, replacing it with something smaller but unexpectedly real. 2 weeks into her sentence, Sophia sat cross-legged on a colorful classroom rug, her designer pants collecting chalk dust. Across from her, Jamie Anderson frowned at a set of flashcards, her small forehead wrinkled in concentration. The afternoon sun streamed through the classroom windows, creating a warm bubble around their small study corner. I just can't remember them, Jamie sighed, pushing away the multiplication cards Sophia had spent the previous evening creating. The night before, Sophia had surprised herself by choosing to skip her usual spa appointment to make these cards, each one decorated with pictures that connected to the numbers. 3 groups of smiling sunflowers for 3x4, 4 sets of pizza slices for 4x5. Let's try something different, Sophia suggested, remembering how she'd struggled with math herself years ago. She reached for her bag, not the Gucci one anymore, but a practical tote filled with teaching supplies. What's your favorite thing in the whole world? Jamie's eyes lit up. Ice cream sundaes. Perfect. Sophia grabbed some scrap paper, drawing quick sketches of ice cream scoops. If we have 3 sundaes, and each sundae has 4 scoops, she watched Jamie's face transform as understanding dawned. That's 12 scoops, Jamie exclaimed, bouncing slightly. Wait, so if I think about things I like? For the next hour, they created story problems with unicorns, butterflies, and soccer balls. Each correct answer earned a sticker. something Sophia had originally thought childish, but now understood the magic of, especially when Jamie's face glowed with achievement. Mrs. Chen, passing by during her prep period, paused to observe. She'd been skeptical when the privileged young woman first arrived, but something had shifted. The Sophia who had strutted in wearing impractical heels 2 weeks ago was hardly recognizable in the engaged young woman now sitting on the floor, patiently working through math problems with genuine interest. Miss Sophia. Jamie tugged at her sleeve, interrupting her next question. Can you come to my soccer game on Saturday? I'm going to score 3 goals, and then we can multiply that by 2 to get my total points. Sophia felt something warm expand in her chest, an unfamiliar feeling of being needed for something real, something that couldn't be bought. Her phone lay forgotten in her desk drawer, its constant notifications of party, invites, and shopping sales unread. For the first time in her life, she was exactly where she wanted to be. I wouldn't miss it for anything, she replied, realizing with surprise that she actually meant it. Parent-teacher conference night transformed Excellence Academy's hallways into a gentle buzz of activity. Sophia sat at her small desk, surrounded by carefully arranged student work, including Jamie's latest math test, proudly displaying an A+. Her designer blazer hung forgotten on a chair, replaced by a cardigan decorated with mathematical symbols, a gift from her third graders. Dr. Sarah Anderson arrived exactly on time, still wearing her surgical scrubs beneath her coat. Sophia had been nervous about meeting Jamie's mother, especially after learning she was the head of neurosurgery at City General. The woman who entered the classroom radiated the same quiet confidence as Ms. Thompson, her gentle smile matching Jamie's. Ms. Carter, Dr. Anderson extended her hand. Jamie talks about you constantly at home. Apparently, ice cream sundaes are now an essential part of multiplication tables. Sophia laughed, relaxing slightly. Jamie taught me that the best learning happens when it's connected to something you love. She pulled out Jamie's progress folder, filled with increasingly improved test scores. She has an incredible mind for patterns. Once we found the right approach, everything clicked. You know, Dr. Anderson said thoughtfully, examining her daughter's work, Jamie struggled with math last year. Her previous tutor suggested she might never excel in the subject. She looked up at Sophia. But she came home last week explaining complex multiplication to her little brother using superhero teams. Sophia felt her chest tighten with pride. Jamie just needed someone to believe in her. She paused, realizing something. She taught me as much as I taught her. Dr. Anderson smiled knowingly. That's usually how the best learning works. She pulled out her phone, showing Sophia a photo of Jamie surrounded by flashcards on their living room floor. This was Sunday evening. She insisted on making study materials for her classmates, just like you did for her. The 2 women shared coffee after the formal conference ended, their conversation flowing naturally from Jamie's progress to their own lives. Sophia found herself captivated by Dr. Anderson's stories of medical school, of balancing motherhood with a demanding career, of building respect in her field through dedication rather than connections. You know, Dr. Anderson said as she gathered her things, Jamie mentioned you're considering taking some education courses. Her eyes met Sophia's with understanding. Sometimes life puts us exactly where we need to be, even if it's not where we thought we wanted to go. Sophia glanced around the classroom, at the artwork her students had made for her, at the math games she created, at Jamie's proud A+ paper. For the first time in her life, she felt the weight of true accomplishment, earned through effort rather than privilege. 3 months after her first appearance, Sophia Carter stood again in Courtroom 305. The morning light caught her Excellence Academy volunteer coordinator pin rather than designer jewelry. Her father sat in the gallery, along with Ms. Thompson, Dr. Anderson, and, approved by special permission, Jamie, clutching her latest math test and practically bouncing with excitement. Judge Morris studied the comprehensive report before him, his expression thoughtful. The courtroom remained silent, but this silence felt different from the tense atmosphere of Sophia's first appearance. Even Officer Johnson, present for the proceedings, noticed how she carried herself differently, confidence replaced by genuine humility. Miss Carter, Judge Morris began, I have here reports from Excellence Academy detailing your work over the past 3 months. He adjusted his glasses. Miss Thompson writes that you not only completed your assigned duties, but voluntarily started an after-school math program for struggling students. Sophia's hands were clasped in front of her, steady and sure. Your Honor, when I first entered this courtroom, I thought my time was more valuable than anyone else's. I measured worth by price tags rather than impact. She glanced back at Jamie, who gave her an encouraging thumbs up. Excellence Academy taught me that true privilege isn't about what you have, it's about what you give. The judge leaned forward slightly. And your plans moving forward? I've enrolled in education courses at City University, Sophia replied, her voice clear and determined. Miss Thompson has offered me a permanent position at Excellence Academy. I'll be working while studying to become a certified teacher. She paused, a genuine smile touching her lips. Though I'll miss my original third-grade class, who taught me more about multiplication and life than I ever taught them. Judge Morris set down his papers, and for the first time, Sophia saw him smile. When you first appeared here, Miss Carter, I saw someone who needed to learn the value of respect and responsibility. Today, I see someone who has not only learned those lessons, but is prepared to teach them to others. He raised his gavel, but before he could pronounce her sentence complete, Jamie's small voice piped up from the gallery. Miss Sophia, don't forget to tell him about our math club. Laughter rippled through the courtroom, warm and genuine. Even the judge chuckled. Sophia turned to face her student, her heart full. The expensive handbag she'd once prized now held homework to grade and math games she created. Her phone, once her constant companion, stayed silent in her pocket, replaced by more meaningful connections. Case closed, Judge Morris declared, bringing down his gavel. Though I suspect this is really just the beginning. Sophia knew he was right. Her journey hadn't ended. It had just taken a new, more meaningful direction.